What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 53 of the Figuring It Out Finance podcast, where I, Chris Rickenbaugh, am documenting my journey in real estate and business while also talking about travel hacking and personal finance. Before we hop into the show, go follow me on all the socials where you can stay up to date daily on everything I'm doing on Instagram and TikTok at Figuring It Out Finance. You can check out the podcast on Spotify and YouTube, where you can find all the episodes as well as Podbean. YouTube, I'm looking to start maybe doing a couple videos here and there, just kind of testing the waters a little bit, getting something out there. But go check out figuringitoutfinance.com, where you can see all of the podcasts that are being uploaded, as well as some of the past projects that I've done. So on flip number 2, just joined Cam Cathcart's Deal Flow, and still doing the book of the week and getting ready for a Hawaii trip. So big things coming. Hopefully we'll be able to get out there and meet Cam while I'm out in Hawaii. But today's episode is going to be about the book of the week, the 4-Hour Workweek, part 3. So this is going to be mainly the second half of the book and what Tim Ferriss talks about in the 4-Hour Workweek. And I'm going to explain some of the things that really stood out to me the first time I read it, as well as reading it the second time, because he gets a little bit into the weeds here about the automation part in your business. So when you're running a high-level business, as he was with Brain Quicken, he was able to remove himself from the business and remove the human element, which is one of the biggest topics in today. Other than the automation, it's going to be the liberation. So getting out of your job, whether you're in a W-2, whether you own your own business, but being able to liberate yourself from that, and then why it's not as expensive or as crazy to travel, and what is holding you back in life. So if you hear me a little bit stuffed up today, I'm going through a little bit of a cold, so just hang in there with me. But let's hop into today's episode. So, getting started here, the automation, like I said, Tim Ferriss gets into a little bit of the weeds because, he ran a big business, but he his whole idea was to be able to remove the human element of his business, so it didn't rely on him and it was very automated. He was giving back to his business a little bit more, to where it didn't rely on him to answer every question. He removed a lot of those people and the headaches that those people who were just giving him headaches in his business, and then gave his employees a little bit more power to say, hey, I trust you, you understand this, and if it's under this dollar amount, I don't need to be notified. Just get it done. And that removed himself a lot from a lot of the problems he was having in his original business, and then just being able to automate it. So that removes probably, he said, 85 to 90% of those emails that he was getting, because they were just small, like little $50 problems. So once he was able to say, hey, I trust you guys, you know what you're doing, and get himself out of that, he removed a lot of the emails. And then he even tried backing himself out even a little bit further, to where he was getting a lot less emails, making it really, really difficult. And pretty much, if there is a large problem, how are other people going to solve this for me? So that he's only answering those major problems. So that is pretty much as deep as I want to get on the automation part, because he got really into the weeds. I don't think that I'm in that position to be able to, talk so much about the automation, because that's eventually what I want to get to. So how I kind of run it right now is, I'm only on my second flip, but I have a great contractor, I have a great agent, and I'm doing a little bit more of the legwork on trying to find opportunities, whether it's fix and flip, whether it's sub to, just trying to get the ball rolling. And so once kind of something I'm figuring out now is once I find the house, whether say it's a fix and flip, I find the house, I do kind of a little bit more of the legwork in the beginning, getting all the utilities, water set up, electric, and then getting the house planned out, going room by room, saying, hey, here's the finishes we want, here's what we need to do room by room. And then getting the layout like on this basement of the flip we're doing right now. And then, I hand that off to the contractor. He gets all the little measurements. Like, I don't need to be in all those conversations and ideas of, hey, we need another box of nails. It's like, he's just going to go out and do it. So that's where I like it, because then he can just update me. I'll get updates every 1 to 2 days. I'll go check out the property once or twice a week. And then that allows me the time to be able to go out and find more opportunities, because if I make money, that means he's making a lot of money too. He's able to build his business up, hire more employees. So, we're all just trying to do it together. So he's got his business really dialed in, which is really fun to kind of bounce ideas off him. We're able to shoot over properties and say, hey, how many, what is the price you're thinking on the renovations here? And then I'm able to go off that. So he's really taught me a lot, and that's helped me a lot more on the front end to where I can say pretty much yes or no to properties right away. It doesn't take me an hour or days to figure out if I want to move forward with the house, because he's taught me how to run the numbers really quickly. So getting out of the automation part into liberation. So he talks a little bit about the employees. So this applied to me, and I think this is what really affected my mindset right away, because reading this book, it taught me how to automate, and it taught me how to be productive. So when I went into working, so for my first job, we're all stuck in this office, and I'm like, okay, well, none of us are doing anything in here, but if you ask somebody, it's like, oh, we're grinding, we're just, nose down, head down, we're just grinding. It's like, no, we're not. Nobody's doing anything in here. There's just a ton of detailed spreadsheets with no information on them. It's all just the same information on a different style of spreadsheet. So one of his main points is here, if you are an employee, he teaches you how to work your way out of the office. So taking a sick day or two and coming back to your boss and saying, man, I was really productive when I was at home. This saved me 2 hours on the drive. I didn't have that office distractions, and I actually got more done in a productive way. So, is there a way to where maybe I could take Mondays at home, or 1 to 2 days at home, and just kind of working yourself up to 1 to 2 days. Maybe it's 3 days. And then, you're not having to come in on Mondays and Fridays. Then to a full week, to a 2-week remote period, and then slowly working your way to fully remote, to where, he goes through all that in the book, so I'm not going to break it all down. But basically, he even has it on the book. Don't read this book if you don't want to quit your job, because that's the book I read before I even started working. And I really think, and I truly believe it had a huge impact on my mindset going into working, because, I got in there and I'm just like, what are we doing here if we're not doing anything? It's like, let's just go home. Like, we know when our workload's going to be. So here, me sitting there for the whole month of December, it's like, what are we doing? So with the quitting, he and this is something that I took into my second job as well, is don't confuse the complex with the difficult. Most situations are simple. Many are just emotionally difficult to act upon. So he relates this quote to quitting because it's a very emotional thing. So I went through this on my second job where I was ready to be done, and it's not so much the idea of, hey, I know I'm not making money here. Hey, I know I don't want to work here. So the emotional part of it is, what's on that other side? How am I going to support myself? How am I going to make money? The bills, insurance, and those are a lot of the simple problems that you can easily fix, but they're just very emotional because something I saw for myself when I was leaving, parents, friends, family are all asking you, how are you going to do this? That's so risky. Just get a job and be safe. And it's like, that's what got me the most nervous, just because it was something, I don't know what's on that other side. I feel like I have it dialed in. I have a good idea of what I want to do and how I want to do it. But the problem is they don't see that. They want to think very safe. They want you to be safe. So that's what creates the emotions in me and just kind of creates that panic mode. So when I really separate all of those people out and really dial in and focus, I can say, okay, this is how much I need per month. And this is how I can support myself. Here it is. And then if I'm making money on the side, I know when that money is going to come back to me. It's just being able to accept that and understand that it's not just going to be this normal 2-week thing. And some people need that normal 2 weeks because they can't handle that stress. And that's where I feel like I've gotten to a point now to where, hey, I understand this is how it goes. I'm not going to be able to, or I'm not going to let myself freak out about it or let other people get me all excited and nervous. It's easier just to kind of really dial in and focus. So that's what I'm really excited with this Deal Flow program, because everybody's kind of in that same area of, hey, I'm going for it here. So we're all kind of going through that same area. So moving on a little bit here, Tim Ferriss kind of starts talking about getting past the quitting and getting past that goal. Once you got your financial numbers down, once you're starting to be productive, working in your business, what is this whole goal of life? So the fisherman story that he talks about is there's this wealthy businessman that goes on vacation to this tropical island. He's got his week with his family, and he's just walking the fisherman village, and he sees this fisherman come back with, some fish, and he says, why are you coming in so early? And the fisherman says, well, I caught enough for me and my friends. And the businessman says, what do you do for the rest of the day now that you're done so early? He says, oh, well, we cook the fish, I hang out with my family, I take a nap, and then I can go play the guitar and hang out with my wife and drink wine. And then the businessman says, well, why don't you think about staying out there, more, and then being able to sell a fish and being able to scale that business to where you have charters and bring in a ton, you have employees, and then you go move to the mainland, go to New York, get this office and really create a company for it. And then the fisherman says, oh, well, how long would that take? And he says, well, probably like 10 to 15 years total. And then he's like, okay, well, then what would I get to do? Well, then you would get to, sleep late, fish, go hang out with your friends, drink wine with your wife. Exactly what he was doing in that moment with a lot less money. He was living this person's dream life without going through that 10 to 15 years. So, that really puts it into perspective for me when I was reading this book. It's like, well, there's a different side of this life, that you don't have to go and create these millions and millions of dollars to be able to live your dream life. And that's what really spoke to me. So that really pushed me to think, how do I want to do this? I could work nose to the grindstone and make a ton of money, but I'm going to hate my life for that 10 to 15 years and not get to experience life. So what I'm doing now and how I'm kind of creating my business and how I want to do it, I'm able to go and play golf. I don't have to work, 20 hours a day in those 80-hour weeks to be able to go and enjoy it. I work a lot less now. I'm definitely learning how to make money in this and, really prioritizing how I'm going to be able to go and make that money. And I have a lot of those opportunities coming in. It's just making sure we got the right amount of capital. And that's where setting up those strategic calls to be able to go and do more. But the whole point of that story is look at what you have now and be able to understand your dream life. And do you need millions of dollars to be able to create that dream life? Or, how can you get there? So another point he brings up here. Yes. So this last point here is, going back to the goal of life is figuring out what you want. And I want to go through two quotes here is lacking an external focus. The mind turns inward on itself and creates problems to solve, even if the problems are undefined and unimportant. So if you haven't defined the problem, it's probably rather unimportant. So you need to have that internal focus on what you want because the mind is going to turn itself to create problems to solve. So if you don't have those problems already, if you're not striving towards something, your mind is going to create problems. And that's something that I've heard HOA presidents, your grass is too long, you don't keep your house up to date. So that's creating an unnecessary problem, just kind of as a reference there. And then because we need that struggle in our lives, because if we aren't working or doing anything, then there would be no meaning. So that's why people create problems out of nothing. It's just because they're bored. It's not because there's an actual problem there. So another quote to kind of lean off of is don't be in a rush to jump into a full-time, long-term commitment. Take the time to find something that calls to you, not just the first acceptable form of surrogate work. So this really applies when people are jumping from job to job. And this is something I was guilty of too, because as soon as I left that job or was looking for another one, I'm thinking, I don't care what it takes. I'm just going to take this job. So that's just putting myself into another situation. So being able to take a little bit of time off, once I left that job, I was thinking, okay, I'm probably not going to make money in real estate for a while, so I just have to find something short-term, like bartending, like working in a restaurant. And I said, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to put in all of that time to be really, really good at that job? Because that's taking me away from real estate. So that's when I said, screw it. I'm going to dive straight into real estate because I want to take that time, or I've taken so much time to be able to learn the strategies and get good at analyzing these opportunities, working with people, and just, basically just that education. It's like, hey, I've read the books, I've listened to the podcasts. It's like now I'm in this opportunity to where I need to take action. So accepting a job like bartending or, just something to make money, that doesn't help me in that space to what I'm going to be doing. It's almost a distraction. So being able to go full time into this real estate, there's no distractions. It's straight, hey, you're in real estate. This is how you're going to make money. You know how to do it. Now it's just time to go and do it. So that is something. That's the quote that I'm going to leave off today is don't be in a rush to jump into a full-time, long-term commitment. Take the time to find something that calls to you, not just the first acceptable form of surrogate work. So that's going to be it for today's podcast, episode number 53, wrapping up for our work week. I'm going to be recording some extra podcasts next week. for when I'm in Hawaii. I probably won't do a live one there, but you can check out my Instagram at Figuring It Out Finance and TikTok, to where I'm going to be posting a lot about that trip and basically what I'm doing day to day. So go ahead and follow me on there. But thank you for tuning into today's podcast. And again, this is Chris Rickenbaugh signing off for the Figuring It Out Finance podcast. We'll see you on the next one.